Hey guys, it's time for the vinyl tag called What If I Was the God of the Vinyl Community? And this is a vinyl tag of 9 questions put together by Mr. Static Traveler over there in the UK. Let's get into the questions as if I were God. I'm going to just pretend to be God for the next 10 minutes. Show a record that you would improve by adding or subtracting a song. This overrated album has some clunker songs on it. Mr. Kite, maybe Fixing a Hole. If I'm only allowed one, I would delete Fixing a Hole. And I would replace it with the Beatles version, late 60s, of Stairway to Heaven. Now we're creating a super record here. It's got great Beatles songs and it's got Stairway to Heaven. As far as I'm concerned, the Beatles could rearrange that song in the style of the Beatles, and it would be a very different song. It wouldn't be 9 minutes long, and there would be vocal harmonies, and it could be a great song, could be a great record. So God's doing that one. Sgt. Pepper just got better. Show an artist that you would resurrect from the dead. Well, if I were a human on Earth asking God to do this, I certainly would beg for Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix was so influential, and yet his career was only 3 years long. He only made 3 studio albums before his untimely death. That's 69, 70? I think it was 70. Maybe it was 71. God should know this sort of thing since I'm the one that killed him. But at what point do we resurrect him? Do we just let him live past his death and just keep going like nothing happened? Or are we bringing him back today? You see, that's the question. If I'm God, I've got to worry about these things. And I do not want you all messing with the time-space continuum that I carefully constructed. I decided the 60s counterculture was going to end at the death of Jimi Hendrix. Well, me and J. Edgar Hoover decided that together. And we can't just let Jimmy just continue that when we put an end to it. So what I would do if I were to resurrect him would be to bring him back today under a different name, not Jimi Hendrix. Might be, Jimmy Bernstein. I don't know. He could be working as a cook or a mechanic somewhere. He's got the born God-given talent that I gave him, but it's still up to him to create that career and see if he can break out into superstardom. I think he will. Okay, Jimi Hendrix. What record do you own that you would obliterate from memory? Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA. I'm sorry. I don't know why I let you make that record in the first place, because it ended up being a crappy record. Now, what's the guy's name? Bruce. Bruce had a good thing going on. He had that sort of rootsy, blue-collar, working man thing going. And then he came out with this record full of synthesizers, 80s pop music, new wave junk that just doesn't go with the style of music that he had already set in place. I'm not a huge Bruce fan, but I became much less of a Bruce fan when that Born in the USA song came out. Born in the USA. What an annoying song that is. And the gated drums, the Phil Collins, gated 80s drum sound. We don't need that. I would suggest, Bruce, that you go back, after I obliterate this record from all memory of humanity, you can go back and I will give you the power to re-record that record, the same songs, but do it with a rootsier, some acoustic guitar and some pedal steel guitar. Get rid of the synths, get rid of the gated drums, get rid of the 80s new wave pop dancing that is just completely out of place. That's what happens when you let the producers and the record company determine what you're doing instead of your own artistic, choices, which I gave you. So use them for God's sake. Use them already. Okay, how about a record that displays some of the power of me, God, your creator? Well, I just happened to go through it. All right, I created Earth and the sun and the moon and the stars. It took me I think 6 days. It was quite a workout, but I did it. So there's a record called McCoy Tyner, Song of the New World. And you can actually see when he's referring to the New World that is North America. You can see the Mexico Baja Peninsula there. So New World meaning North America as opposed to the Earth, which I created. And if you believe that mankind was smart enough to get to the moon and they took this photo, well, believe that if you want. I work in mysterious ways, as you will continue to find out. Three musicians that I'm going to Frankenstein together to make a super musician. Well, first of all, I resent the fact that you think I need Frankenstein's powers to do anything. I can create, combine, discombobulate, add, subtract musicians, body parts, souls together anytime I want. I don't need some fictional Dr. Frankenstein. But I will amuse you with this one, and I will tell you about the three musicians that I will hack into pieces and sew together just to answer this question, okay? And the idea was to create a super musician, but I'm going to start with three multi-instrumentalists that are really super musicians already in their own right. So let's see, we're going to kick it off with, how about Frank Zappa? Now, he was a brilliant composer, arranger, multi-instrumentalist, primarily guitar, but he certainly played keyboards very well, and he could read music, and he had the breadth of musical knowledge that I seek in a multi-talented super musician, because he could do Stravinsky and Led Zeppelin and the Allman Brothers all in one concert, which he did once, if you've seen that show, 1972. He could compose music of many styles: jazz, classical, modern, experimental, rock, pop, you name it. Frank Zappa. Okay, that's number one. I'm going to take somebody number two. Also a super talented multi-instrumentalist. Supposedly played 27 instruments on his first album. I give people such talent sometimes, and it's great to see that they use it. Prince. Prince supposedly played 27 instruments on one record. He produced, composed, was a great pop songwriter. Zappa, not so much of a pop songwriter. Yes, he wrote songs, but he was more of a composer's composer. His music is a little too complex and weird for your average public. So Prince brings that pop sensibility. Now we have two guys that play both guitar and keyboards, and I want to bring in a third person that plays a different style of instrument. So I'm going to go with a horn player. And oddball choice. How does he go with these people? Well, I work in mysterious ways. So Yusef Lateef played like a dozen different horns. Really well known for saxophone and flute and other ethnic, African unusual instruments, the shinai and etc., etc. But a very lyrical quality to his playing that I think is needed for this group. Now, once I start cutting up these bodies and putting them together, it's going to be kind of odd, but just go with it, because, not all of my experiments work out, but we're going to have a body which contains the arms of all three of these gentlemen. So they're going to be concentric, and then three arms sticking out. If you look down, you'd see arms, arms, arms. So if Prince is looking this way, then the arms of Yusef Lateef are looking that way, and the arms of Zappa are looking that way. So they can play 3, 4 instruments at once. Prince can be playing keyboards or bass while Zappa plays guitar, while Yusef is playing a horn instrument. We need at least 2 mouths, because Yusef is going to be using his mouth. Actually, all 3 of these guys sing, so I'm going to let all 3 mouths stay. And I am concerned that they got at least 2 giant egos here, and we're going to see how that plays out. And I think one of the lessons we're going to learn from this is, just because you put 3 great people together, the egos get in the way, and they're going to want to break up after about 2 or 3 years, and they won't be able to break up unless I come in and do some really wild surgery. And so far, I'm just going to let it play out. Okay? How they go to the bathroom, we're not even going to get there yet. Okay, that's on day 8. We'll worry about that. But great question. Thank you, Mr. Static Traveler, for letting me play God and get out my Frankenstein scalpel. How about a record by a male and another record by a female artist that you would save at the end of the world to entertain me, God, through eternity? And again, I'm going for multi-instrumentalists here. I've created some amazing multi-instrumentalists. Probably the most talented keyboardist that I've created in the last 50, 60, 70 years is a guy named Keith Jarrett. Brilliant, brilliant piano and keyboard player, brilliant composer, brilliant improviser, has a breadth of knowledge of classical music. He's got records on Bach and Shostakovich piano sonatas. He is probably the top jazz improviser. Well, he had a stroke recently. I gave him a couple of strokes recently because, you do have to fade out in your last few years. But for these purposes, I certainly can resurrect him at his full strength. So, classical, great jazz player, knowledge of the complete American songbook of jazz standards. But then he is probably the greatest living improviser on the keyboard, because he's released like 20 albums where he just sits down, improvises, plays the whole thing right off the top of his head, sits down for an hour and makes new music. So I'm never going to get sick of this, because he can just sit down and play new music that he composes on the fly for thousands of years, millennia, till I get sick of it. And then a female to go with that. In heaven, male, female, does it matter? Why did I make so many more men musicians than females? Well, we'll get into that some other time. The female artist that I would go with for this particular question, I'm thinking Nina Simone, because again, she's trained as a classical musician. She could do a duet on Bach or something with Keith, but then she's really a jazz piano player and a very interesting, unique singer and songwriter, interpreter of songs. So multi-talented people that hopefully can hold my interest for a few thousand years before I get bored and decide to smite them. But there's my answer. What do we got next? Number 7, Record of the 7 Deadly Sins. I don't think I brought one here, did I? There's Marilyn Monroe. How's that? On short notice, because I forgot. God forgets sometimes. I mean, I've got several galaxies I'm in charge of, so I do get forgetful. There it is. Lust. She got the lust going. Well, who else is on here? Aleister Crowley. Where's his picture? Aleister Crowley. Crowley, the most sinful man of the last couple hundred years. Which sins did he do? Oh my God, he was one sinful mofo. Let me tell you, he did stuff with children that he shouldn't have done. And hold on, what are the 7 deadly sins? Pride, envy, anger. I don't know. He's one sinful guy. Let's put it that way. Next question. A record. Hey, I think I missed one. No, I did the Bruce. Show a record by an artist. We may have it in the other room. Whatever. That an artist that I would condemn to hell for eternity because of his crimes against humanity. I'm going to show this record again. Yeah, same record. This guy here, Richard Starkey, also known as Ringo Starr. Since I'm God, I have the power to bifurcate his soul. So the Beatles' Ringo Starr stays. He's good to go. Plenty of great records. But after the Beatles, this guy, Richard Starkey, I'll call him, made some crappy records. Not a great singer. Not a great songwriter. His post-Beatle career was riding on the coattails of, hey, I'm famous, I got a lot of friends who want to come over, hang out at my mansion, enjoy some chemical stimulation. I don't think if he would have showed up in 1972 at Capitol Records and said, I'd like a record contract, mate. That's not a very good accent. I don't think it would have gone very far. So let's just forget that whole post-Beatle Ringo period, and we'll keep Ringo number 1. Number 9. In my benevolence, what vinyl community video making person or record collector would I bestow 1 million subscribers? And I do work in mysterious ways, and I don't like to be predictable. So I'm going to pick a vinyl community video maker that I've watched for a long time and is one of my most intriguing creations. He's never shown his face on camera. He only shows his fingers. Sometimes he shows a visage covered in a gas mask. I'm talking about Mr. Finglish of Bad English Rex. Rex as in records. He speaks a broken language that he calls Finglish. He's from Finland. He listens to mostly Finnish heavy metal, which I assume are terrible records, but I haven't heard any of them. I have no plans to. Mr. Finglish, congratulations on your 1,000,000 subscribers. This is God signing off. And if you don't like anything I said, be careful, because I have powers. I still got the powers. I still got the mojo. And thank you, Mr. Static Traveler, for creating this interesting question. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
This is Mr. Finglish talking from Bad English Rex. Okay, this is some albums or CDs I have bought during the summer. I don't remember where they were, but from some era. And do you know the feeling when you have bought something like CD or vinyl and you have listened it many times, many times, and then you don't